Hello and welcome to the Smart Connections podcast and the Talk the Path podcast. My name is Anna Sanderlin. I am a warm-line facilitator for the University of Memphis Smart Center. The University of Memphis School of Social Work Smart Research, Training, and Treatment Center aims to provide evidence-based interventions for school-based mental health programming, increase access for school-based behavioral health programming in underserved areas, offer training on best practices in telebehavioral health, develop opportunities to research the use of technology in practice, and provide direct services to the state's most vulnerable populations. You can call the Smart Center at 901-678-1636. The University of Memphis Smart Center, in conjunction with the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, would like to present the Pathways to Behavioral Health Careers Project. The goals of the Pathways Project are to provide education and information on the various career opportunities in the field of behavioral health through presentations, increase interest in students in the field of behavioral health, provide opportunities for guidance with information regarding college, university programming that result in degrees for professions in the field of behavioral health, connect students with students in behavioral health programs and professionals in the field for further research. This podcast will feature students and professionals in the field to give a clear picture of the daily duties of these roles and how they help support their communities.
I'm Misty Brooks. I'm the lead school psychologist here in Rutherford County Schools.
I'm John Davis. I'm a school psychologist. This is my 28th year overall and 21st in Rutherford County.
I'm Ethan Spencer, also a school psychologist. This is my 12th year and second year in Rutherford County.
Okay. And Misty, how long have you been either in the field or at the Rutherford County Schools?
I have been in the field. This is my 20th year and my ninth with Rutherford County Schools.
Okay. So we've got some veterans in the game, and hats off to you, 28 years, 12 years and 9. It's, of course, difficult to do things for long periods of time, but it could be awesome, if it's something that you love and it feeds you in a way that is, what you need at the moment. So I love to hear that you guys have found a place that you can, grow in and be in for such a long time. I've been with the Smart Center. It was started in 2020 and I've been with it since then, but at the University of Memphis, since 2006. So I know about finding a place that you can call home and staying there and being able to do the work that is important. So I want to start off by, can you explain what a school psychologist does and kind of what are some of the primary goals of a school psychologist?
So the work that we do is varied depending on which state you work in, and even within a state, it can vary from county to county. But the majority of what we do is we consult with teachers and families. We evaluate for possible disabilities. We analyze data to help improve interventions and provide mental health supports, provide crisis response. We help maintain the safety of our students and faculties through threat assessments and safety plans. But mostly we like working with students to make sure that they're getting the help they need to succeed.
Thank you. It's wonderful to know that there are, many facets of being a school psychologist, many areas that you provide service and assistance in. Anyone else want to go next? Or did she cover it all?
That was very well said, Missy.
Yeah, that was wonderful. I always just think of, trying to give that bird's eye view kind of, you'll have a lot of different moving parts, different people not always communicating. So, trying to help be one of those bits of glue to keep the team kind of in the loop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think especially with the assessment piece, we, when we're dealing with parents and teachers, they sort of come in it with some we're sort of able to come at it sometimes from that non-biased assessment data piece. Mm-hmm. And it sort of plugs in with everybody else's. And I think it's just providing as much information to the team, because at the end of the day, it's about what's best for the child. And we may vary on what that is, but at the end of the day, it's providing pieces of information that other people may not have been able to get.
That's really, really interesting because I know, there's a lot of emotion that goes into dealing with someone who may be having a particular issue or have the perspective of an unmet need. So hearing that you guys are able to use assessment data to help, kind of quell that so that you can really be, a help mate to, the particular child or particular family is wonderful because I'm not sure a lot of people think of, assessments and data when they think about psychology, except for maybe at the beginning when they're trying to figure out like what is the crisis or emerging issue, but to know that there are assessments that you can utilize as a ongoing piece of the types of services and support that you offer these families, I think will be an interesting, thing for people to learn. And also, I think it's kind of solidifies that psychology is just as evidence-based as any other field because of the utilization of those types of assessments. So I love hearing that, you guys use those. And so the next question we have is what kind of inspired you to pursue a career as a school psychologist? Did you know at the beginning you wanted to do it? Were you inspired by something like a movie or a person? How did you get your entryway into this field?
I think I speak for all of us where it was the money and fame that we were at.
Yes. Really I see in the background all those illustrious awards and diamonds and furs.
Yeah. This is not my office, by the way. This is the ultimate social work office. And I know we're not talking about social workers, but as I sat down, I was like, this is not my office. It is independent wealth, as Ethan said. Honestly, I had no idea, to be honest with you. I was like a lot of people. I was in college, sort of floating around, and wasn't really sure. And I had all these psychology it was my minor and was in psychology, and so I had all these hours, and I had a lot of aunts and uncles on my mom's side were teachers, and they were like, we've got this guy that works for our county. We're not completely sure what he does, but he's a school psychologist. You should come meet with him. He seemed like a nice guy. I went and met with him a couple of times, and it was really that sort of, I liked that, and I thought, well, let's just give this a chance and kind of leap of faith, and went to grad school, and here we are.
Wow. So you had a bit of exposure, and it awakened something in you and changed your path. That's great. There's always a different, pathway to get somewhere. So I love hearing that, you had an opportunity to observe a bit. What about everyone else? Were your paths similar or dissimilar to Mr. John? I'm from Mississippi, so I often call people Mr. and Mrs.
You're my experience.
I did my undergrad in something completely different, more in like television film. And I worked in that world for 4 or 5 years. And it, the want to kind of do meaningful, impactful work, came about. In my parents, kind of like John was saying, my parents were both teachers growing up. And so kind of that school world, but knowing that I don't quite have the enough gas or patience to be a teacher, because those people are amazing, and I don't have the capacity for it. But to kind of marry those worlds of psychology and education, and at the same time, again, like John, I didn't know it was a career, a field, that it existed. And the more you learn about it, the more kind of, the idea of working one-on-one with kids, or kind of getting to be that advocate, to look out for the success and safety of our students. It's definitely a more meaningful field for me. So that's what brought me to it.
Thank you for sharing that you realized something just wasn't for you. Because with my work, I do find a lot of students who have stayed the course, as a testament to their character. It's great. But they find out later that something just wasn't the right fit for them. And they never felt that it was a normal thing to change your mind. So it's wonderful to hear that you were able to see, while this is amazing work and amazing field, it's beyond either what I want for my life right now, my skill set, or where I currently am, or things like that. So I'm glad that the students will be able to hear that you can change. Of course, you can take a left instead of a right and still end up in the right place. So thank you for sharing that bit about yourself and your journey, Misty.
For me, I was the first in my family to go to college. And I had always, growing up, my mom had always just drilled it into my head that I would be going to college, but we never actually discussed what I liked or didn't like or what career I would do. I was going to college. So I got to college and had no idea what to do. This was it. This was the goal. I met it. Now what? So I kind of switched majors several times and kind of fell into elementary education. But I did it kind of because you'll look at the research. A lot of first time college people end up either in nursing or in teaching. So I think I just did it as a default because I like helping people and I like kids. But it really wasn't a calling or anything. But my senior year of college, I took a test and measurements class from a school psychologist. And that was the first time I had ever heard of school psychology or anything. Just that one class was like an aha moment for me. Like, this is how I can do what I want, which is to help people, but also use that very analytical brain I've got and like logic puzzles and all. I mean, I was doing all of that in my spare time. So like, it makes sense to do something that included that. So I went to grad school for school psych instead. And I actually never was a teacher.
Yeah. Hearing you say that, it was as if you were reading my diary, because I am a first gen. I am a drilled into you. Education is the way out. Education will save you. And when you said that you never talked about a major, I have run across that with so many first gen people who enter into academia.
Yes.
So I'm like so happy to hear that it worked out for you, but also others to know that it will work out for them too. There's always different levels of exposure and opportunity, so that's why it's good to have individuals in the field who are advocating for particular curriculum adjustments so that students can know what's available and not, kind of lean on things of the past. We have to kind of stay ahead of the fray when, things are trending or changing, when new things are emerging, new schools of thoughts, new patterns of behavior, adding those in so that students, know, this is a field where I can contribute these very special set of skills, or I can affect in this particular way with research. So it's, so good to hear another person had that journey, because I truly stepped on campus with like, I don't know, creative writing, I guess. I don't know. And that clearly was not for me because, I'm an advocate for life. So, it's great to hear that you were able to, land in a place where you can make the greatest effect on those who have the highest level of need. So now I want to shift a little bit. Could you guys tell me about experiences that you had that, were difficult along your journey, or, maybe had some bumps in the road and how you overcame those, if you had those? You guys might have had, golden page walk through life.
No, we none of us have ever had contentious parent meetings, so it's a blessing. No, I think in kind of John had spoke to this about everybody kind of comes with, different levels of motion and emotion and kind of input and what they think is kind of best trajectory for a student. And a lot of times that can get contentious. And so it's, I just kind of consistently, especially, if advocates or lawyers are involved, I just try to remind myself that, at the end of the day, my goal is to do best by that student. So not kind of to be too swayed from one side or the other. I try to have blinders on and be like, nope, if no one was in this room, what is the thing that I would think should happen moving forward? So I try to keep the focus on the student, but yeah, it can get pretty hairy and intense at times.
I like that's a good way to address it. If no one else is in the room, what would you do? How would you be feeling? What would you suggest? And a good bit of information for students to utilize across areas in their life as they are, being molded by what they hear in the classroom, their life experiences, the outside voices of parents and friends. What makes you most balanced, most happy, most satisfied with your choices. So I think that's a really good practice to have. And thank you for, sharing about how contentious it can get in some of the practices you utilize to, kind of slow that down. Anybody else like to share on that particular question?
I think just in general, it's sort of finding your niche, not just as a profession, but within that profession. I was fairly nomadic when I first started doing this. It took me a while to get to Rutherford County, now 20 years, but this is probably my fourth or fifth county. For varying reasons. But within that, and that's the thing about a county like Rutherford County, that's pretty big. You can, if you want to find it, you can find it here, kind of thing, both age range. And I think once you find that niche and find that area, I think everything else sort of falls into place sometimes. And, and I think, and at the end of the day, you have to, kind of what you can go to sleep at night feeling that you've done right by what you've done. And then with just the understanding that sometimes people are just not going to agree with you, or, and that's just kind of how this is going to go sometimes. You can't take it personal, but just kind of go in. This is where I am, and this is where I feel like we are, and go from there. And don't take anything personally. Don't take anything. But I think finding your place within that kind of gives you that solid foundation of strength there as well.
I think too, you made mention of the school district being a larger school district. I definitely think having a well-resourced environment to work in does help with being able to have those connections, linkages to address and combat issues that might come up. And I love that it seems to be projects like these that can help some of the smaller districts or smaller entities have resources that are freely available that help with things that might come up. So it's wonderful to have people who are fighting for that, so that everybody can kind of have more of what they need, so that things can fall into place a little bit without having to work so hard, because there's just so many different things in the world that can be difficult. Certainly trying to get assistance to handle an issue doesn't need to have roadblocks. And as long as we are, doing things like this and having people like you in place, or you all, we can kind of reduce some of those barriers, some of those roadblocks to entering into the service continuum or addressing issues or getting needs met. So, I definitely think where you are makes a lot of difference in how much those bumps in the road along the journey affect, not only your journey as a professional, but the type of service that you can have as an output as well. Miss Misty, did you want to share, or totally fine if you didn't have any barriers? You're just lucky.
Oh, right. Yes, no barriers. Honestly, okay, so John had mentioned finding your niche. I took a liking to kids with autism really early on in my career, and I started getting more and more going to more and more trainings on it, learning more and more about it. And then in 2011, I had my own daughter who has autism. So that has been its own kind of interesting and difficult kind of thing along the way, is I'm on both sides of the table now. I am both a parent of a child with a disability, a significant disability, as well as an assessment specialist. And so that brings its own difficulty, that type of thing. But it's also been a blessing, of course. So it's okay. But so some of the things, though, that we would suggest for parents to do for their children who have significant disabilities. Now that I'm a parent going through it, I realize how hard some of those things are to do. Right. I know the things, but they are hard to implement. But I think that's given me a great perspective when I'm working with these parents. I can say, listen, I know this is hard to do consistently because I live this every day. But if you can get this implemented in your home, you'd be amazed at how much better, things will flow or whatever. But so it's been difficult, but it's also been a blessing.
Right. That's actually a great segue into my next question. And it is how do you continue to stay on top of learning in your role? And for you, having a child with a disability has enhanced your, focus on, what you can do to assist her on both sides, of the table. So I'd like for us to just share on, how do we continue to learn? Because the world changes. When we were going through school and we were taught different things, it's very different from both world events, cultural changes. How do we stay on top of learning so that we are providing, the best services, best offerings to those in need?
Well, we're very fortunate that our state has a local Tennessee Association of School Psychologists. And then we also have a National Association of School Psychologists, and they each put on conferences. So the National Association puts on a huge convention every year, but the state association does 2 smaller conferences, and they put out a lot of information on all of the updates, both legal updates as well as kind of shifting focuses in the field. We've been really big here in the last several years about being conscientious about students who are BIPOC, so the students who are people of color, and how the assessments have some implicit bias, and some of them are not even typically used with students with from other backgrounds other than typical white middle class people. So for some of the assessments. So we keep on top of all of those so that we are more aware of what assessments we should be giving, because our population is not white middle class kids, sure, a little bit of them, but we have such a diverse population in Middle Tennessee. Lots of people who have English as their second language or third language. And just, it helps us to keep on top of all of those things.
That's absolutely wonderful here. And what a stellar job that your school district is doing in recognizing both the changes that happen, but also making sure the population that you're serving is adequately addressed, in those different ways. So love to hear that they are, supporting you guys in that way and recognizing, just the need for changes, the need to adjust as your population, and changes in different ways. So I absolutely happy to hear that, because that's not always the case. For a very long time, we lean on what's already been researched and peer reviewed, which makes sense. But, we also have to keep our eyes open and our hearts as well to recognizing the change that's in front of us, so that, we are helping, in the way that's most responsible and most impactful and most beneficial. These lovely children that we work with. Anybody else like to share on that particular topic or question?
I think a real strength for Rutherford County too is, and I think school psych in general brings to it some whip smart folks. And Rutherford County has some really high achievers that come and share their information with the rest of us. Not that, I mean, we're all whatever, but but yeah, definitely, being open to that consultation piece with your other school psychs, having that ability and that open communication to bounce stuff off of. I have, a little pod of folks that I like to bounce questions off of I was thinking this, what do you think? And yeah, definitely some people like John had said, some areas of expertise that people have developed over the years that they're willing to come back and share with us and help us all develop and grow. So we are kind of reflecting current best practices.
Right. Those corridors of communication with other individuals from, varying levels of background and learning experience have been such a boon to the work that I do and other individuals. So it's wonderful to hear you're taking advantage of that. A lot of students probably don't know that that's an option. Like if you are a student, you think, oh, well, I can't ask these questions or I don't have this access level. But, it's our responsibility to, of course, let them know, but also make it warm and welcoming and gracious so they don't have to feel like, well, I can only ask or be a part of this learning community if I have a PhD or a master's, or I've got a certain set of hours behind me. So making sure, information and resources remain accessible, low cost or free has been one of my champion calls throughout my history as a student and as a professional. So it's wonderful to hear that your school district, of course, not only draws excellence, but you are connected to others outside, as whether it's consulting, project-based, or, just sharing, So thank you for letting us know about your efforts to stay on top of learning, what's out there. John, did you have anything you want to add?
I was just thinking, like when we have other professional developments, I try to go to ones that may be more geared toward teachers, not just necessarily school psychs. Like if we just have general PDs, I may not necessarily pick up anything that's going to help my job specifically, but I want to hear what they're hearing. And so that in of itself sort of is a byproduct of what I do, because I don't want my testing or our assessments to be sort of in isolation. I want it to be meaningful. I don't want to come to the team with just numbers. So if I know that this is kind of where they're going, I want to sort of tie my data to, or just the information. I want it to be meaningful to the team and not just a series of standard scores and percentiles. I want it to be, and hearing what they're hearing at some of these professional developments have really helped me. If nothing else, it builds rapport, and they know that you're sort of on their side and seeing you there, not just with your, with your group, that your 4 or 5 that you're always with, but if you're in there with them and you're kind of hearing that and some ideas off of each other later and things like that, I think really is really helpful.
Right. News you can use, they're on the front line. They're the one that are,
exactly.
Hearing and experiencing these things that are symptoms of the issues that are going on. So to adjust and reflect that in your work in a way that they can utilize in their classrooms or in their projects with students, not only makes them feel heard and seen, but again, has, a huge impact with the students. So love that you are gearing a lot of the professional development opportunities towards teachers who carry the bulk of the load with just the level of access they have with students during the day. I think that's a really great practice to have, and that more people should do, because I really haven't heard that, across all of the podcasts that we've recorded, that people are making sure to ensure topics that are most relevant for teachers are included in assessments, and then, cycling that information back to them so that they can use and package in a way that's most, relatable to them. So we're coming towards time here. So one of my last 2 questions I have is, do you work with social workers at your school? And if so, how do you interact, or how do your roles interact with each other?
John recently stole my social worker, so I'll toss it to him.
That's how
you got the office.
we poach good social workers from within the county.
Yeah.
What Ethan is so eloquently referring to. I'm full-time preschool. We have 2 full-time preschool assessment teams, and within each of those teams, there's myself, or there's a school psych, social worker, and SLP who work together as a unit. And mine chair retired, and so we were able, fortunately, to add a very good one today, and which means that other buildings have lost her. But I will say, other than our group, the school psychs, I think the social workers that we have in Rutherford County are maybe our strongest asset here in the county. They are a special breed of people. They are, as you can tell by their office, this is not a school psych's office that I'm in. This is definitely a social worker's office. But I think we have great social workers. They have a social worker's heart. They come at it from a very special place. And the ones that I work with have been great and really go out of their way to do everything that they can. They are very special people on this earth in general.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Mr. John. I love hearing that you have those stellar social workers that you can work with. And we know the heavy load that they carry as well. So love to hear that you have brilliant-minded ones who are working so closely alongside you all. Anyone else want to share on that question?
Yeah, I would just say that when we work with our social workers, we work together very closely on doing threat assessments and safety plans. But then also when we're doing our evaluations, sometimes our social workers will do parent interviews or they'll get some of the rating scales. They'll do those with the parents who maybe won't be able to complete them on their own. And then sometimes when we need to do home visits to get maybe signatures that, the parents haven't sent back or something, the social workers will go with you to go do that. They're great at doing those outside resources too, that honestly, that's just not our strength as school psychs. We're great working with the kids and working with the parents, but finding outside community resources and stuff, I'm not going to, I don't know any of those. And they're great at making all of those. So we consult with them a lot because they are so good at having all of those outside community resources just at the tip of their fingers.
Right. They strengthen the dyad because they know, what they do well, how to support in the most effective way. So that's, it's great to have them, integrated in such a high level in the school system. Because, of course, that's not always the case, but it sounds like you guys have found a good working relationship with them where you guys are both supporting each other equitably.
Yes.
Mr. Ethan, did you have anything you want to share?
Yeah, I think, another points to another real strength for at least our county. This is the first county I've been in where, we have the school counselors and we also have the social workers and the behavior interventionists. So the amount of supports that are offered just at the tier 1 level and above are pretty amazing in this district. And yeah, just to reiterate what Missy and John have said, that the social workers are just kind of a godsend, and their knowledge base on those outside supports is so very clutch. And it's a great resource to have. And they're another, for those threat assessments or safety plans, it's just great to kind of bounce ideas and kind of, figure out, maybe what level of severity we're talking about, or figure out what kind of, additional supports make sense for a particular student or particular family. So they are very much valued here in Rutherford.
All right. Love fest for our social workers. We love you guys hard. Now, my last question is, if you had an unlimited budget for your role, what will you use bulk of the money on?
School psych student ratio. I'd really, maybe one psych per 500 kids. I think that'd be cool.
I think that's probably what we're all going to say, because in all honesty, we've got just about the other resources that we would need. We pretty much have. So what we would want more of would be additional school psychologists, because the National Association does recommend one psych for every 500 students, and we are currently at about 1 to 1,900. So, yeah, if we had more, we'd be able to utilize more of our training, mental health. We could offer mental health support and more consultations and things like that. Whereas now, the focus on what we do most of the time is assessments because we don't have enough time to do all the other things that we're trained in.
Mm-hmm. Yes, best laid plans, come to play in situations like this where we have individuals in place, but it's not supported fully fiscally and to have enough. So the ones that are there are doing, of course, the best that they can, but hopefully projects like this will gain traction, and those that are the funders, the policymakers, the decision makers, hear these things. Students collectively use their voice to say, this is what we need and want. Families feeling empowered to say, this is something that is important and critical, and we're all pushing for more so that we can do the things that we've learned and that we know are best practices. So I hear you. I'm behind you 100%. And I just really want to thank you all so much for, sharing your thoughts, your experiences, your journey, your tidbits, your best practices that you use in your daily interactions with students and families, and of course, your administrative leads. Did anyone have any final comments or questions that they wanted to mention before we close out the podcast today?
I will say real quick, just based off of what Missy said, if I'm also hearing that it's also a great career and you will not want for jobs. I mean, that the other side of this, if you're looking for a career, it's a good career and you will not want for a job.
All right, y'all hear that, students? You hear that out there in podcast land? If you are looking for financial stability, long-term placement, this is where you want to be. School psychology, okay? Come to us. We need you.
And hey, we're federally mandated, so that job security is for sure.
There you go. We love to see it. Well, thank you guys so much. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for tuning in to listen to our podcast, brought to you by the Smart Connections podcast from the Smart Center at the University of Memphis, as well as the Pathways to Behavioral Health Careers Project. If you or anyone you know needs any information from the Smart Center, please contact us at 901-678-1636 or email us at smartcenter@memphis.edu. You can also learn more about us at our website, memphis.edu/smartcenter.